friends and welcome to Obsidian Soft. In the previous tutorial, we had started working on our Google Sheet tutorial in which we could read, add, update and delete rows in Google Sheet through our MIT App Inventor, and we had made a web app, written some script for it, and we had connected our MIT App Inventor app to it, and we had started reading data from Google Sheet into our MIT App Inventor app. So let's complete the app today, but before that, let's look at our app script again. So I can go to that app script by going to my Google Sheet on which I was working and then going to extensions and then clicking on app script again, the same way that we used for creating the app script. And I had two functions here. This is in JavaScript. And the most important thing to note here is that in case of the reading, you don't need to make any change. You can have 10 columns in your data as compared to my 3 columns of ID, name, city, and the reading will work. But you may need to make some changes if your data is a bit different in your doPost function that is used for adding, updating, and deleting. And you can see that here, this data.action is equal to add is taking care of the scenario of adding data, and this is taking care of the updating. And if, for example, your data has an extra column like age, then you will have to add that in the same way, that is comma data.age. And here, in case of update, the change will come here on this line, and that is this I+1, 2 will stay the same, this 1 will stay the same, but if you have an extra column like age, then this will become 3, because instead of updating 2 columns, name and city, now we will be updating name, city and age. So this will become 3, and then you will also have to add age here. So that is one change, assuming that you all have an ID column, okay? So make this change. If you have 4 or 5 more columns, then just add their names and increase the number of columns. Make sure that this is not 3, that is not the total number of columns, because when we're doing the update, we are updating only the name and city. The ID cannot be updated, okay? The row can be deleted, but the ID cannot be updated because we need to know a way of finding the row that has to be updated, and we use the ID. So you cannot update the ID, okay? Now coming back to our code, go to the block section and get the add button, click event, okay? And first of all, we are going to make our add screen visible because we are working on the adding part. Duplicate and make this main screen and make it false, because we're using the concept of virtual screens. So making the add screen layout, that full screen vertical layout, visible and the main screen invisible. Next, we are going to be making our ID text editable. The reason for that is we will be making it read only in case of the update scenario. So to make sure that it is editable when we are adding a new row, so read only should be false. Secondly, if I right click, duplicate, so ID text should be empty. So it should be ready for receiving new data in case of add. So we have to make everything empty again. So city. So everything has been emptied. And next, I'm also going to set my global variable action. Remember, we had made this action variable, and right click, duplicate, and I'm going to write add here. Now get the save button, click event, which user will click after he has written something in the 3 fields of ID, name and city. And I am going to first of all set my web URL. Just go down to my web app's URL. Okay. Now we have to call this web1's post text procedure. So if I click on web1 here, I have call post text and I plug that in. And this is a join of multiple things, in fact 11 things. So go to text and get the join block and click on the cogwheel to add strings to it. So 11 slots, and here I'm going to put in something very carefully and make sure that all your brackets and inverted commas are the same as I'm showing you here, because we are sending this to our web app here. So it is expecting the data in that form, this post, do post. So this is triggered when we do this thing. So we have to send it the data it is expecting, and we send it in this way. First of all, a curly bracket, and then inverted commas, open, action, inverted commas closed, colon, inverted commas closed. So just remember this thing, okay? And then right click, duplicate, and this is your action. Remember, we are setting the global action variable, and we are providing, in the case of add button click, we are providing add here. So if the save button is clicked at this point, this action will contain add, okay? Next, right click, duplicate. Now remove this curly bracket and replace it by another inverted comma and then comma, and this action will become sheet name. So be very careful. And now we have to provide it the sheet name. Once you have done these two, the rest is quite easy, because you just duplicate and this just change the sheet name to your column name, which in our case it's ID. So click on ID text and get this, okay? Now right click, duplicate, just make sure that you just change the ID to name, duplicate, name, duplicate, city, duplicate, city, and here the last one we have to close. Let's just get an empty text block so I can show it to you carefully what we have to write here, and that is just inverted commas and a curly bracket close. So a closing curly bracket, and this is completed. So verify that you do it the same way, and you may need to add, for example, the age column similarly before this closing curly bracket, okay? Now, once we have posted some text, we will contact the web app, and our web app will respond to it in some way. And we have seen that how it responds. It responds to us through web1.getText, and we had completed the reading part here. Now let's work on the add part. So for that, I need to, instead of this else, I need else ifs, okay? So click on this main cogwheel for the first if inside web1.getText. Click on it, and instead of this else, what I need is an else if for the add scenario, an else if for the update scenario, an else if for the delete scenario, and an else if for an error scenario. Okay, so I have added 4 else if to it, and I have removed the else from it. Okay, and now I just need to check. Similarly, duplicate, and bring it down. And here I'm going to check if the action is add. Okay. And I also need to check if it was successful. Okay. So if add is successful, let me show you the example. Okay, here it is successful. So the status should be success. So I have to check for that too. So actually I need a logic and here. So plug this in here and then right click, duplicate and plug this in here. And here I'm going to check if the status is success. Make sure that the spellings are correct. So if it is successful, then we have to update list view. Okay. If I go to my lists and get the add items to list block, and here, what is the list? List is my global sheet data that I use to populate my list view. So I have to update here first, add the row here first, and the way is exactly the same here. So I can duplicate this entire join, but this is not select this thing, it is what the user had provided, id dot text, right click, duplicate, name, right click, duplicate, and city. So whatever the user had provided, if the adding to the Google Sheet is successful, only in that case, we will add it to our global sheet data, and we will also set our list views element. So I'm just duplicating from the read part to the sheet data with an added extra item to it. And I'm also going to do this part, that is hide the add screen, because now our adding part is done, and make the main screen visible again, so that we're back to the main screen where the list view is and where the add, update, delete buttons are. Okay. So let's clean up the blocks. Okay. Now let's work on our update button click event. So go to the update button and here and get its click event. And in update, we have to first check if the user had selected an item on the list view before pressing the update button. Because if he does not select an item, then what will we populate our add screen with? That is ID, name, and city text boxes. So we need to make sure that he did select something from the list view. Okay, so for that, let's get an if then block from control. And here in it, using a logic equal to block that we are going to change to not equal to, we are going to check if our list view selection index, so list view, go down, selection index is not equal to 0. Okay, if it is not equal to 0, this means that he did select something. So we have to do the needful. Let me just duplicate this, bring it down, the code for hiding the main screen and making the add screen, which is incidentally our update screen, visible. And then I am going to make I can copy this from here. ID text read only, because we are not going to allow the user to update the ID. Okay, as I had explained to you when I was showing you the web app. And then I'm going to also make my action update. So be careful again with the spelling. And remember that what we have done to our sheet data, the data is a join of the cells. So we have to actually get the cell items, the individual cell items back using a split from text. And how can we do that? If I just go to my variables and get the local variable block, and I'm going to make it row, and the row is assigned to a split of text. Which text? I right click, duplicate, and instead of selection index, make sure that you choose selection. So this is the data that has been selected by the user, which is a join of 3 things which have been joined using this block. So just duplicate because it has a space and a dash in it too. So be careful with this thing. So we want to split it back. So you have to use the exact thing that joined the cell data. Okay, so this space dash space, and then update these ID text and name and city. So I can right click, duplicate, and change this to text, and this is from lists, select list item block, and here the list is the row because each row has 3 items, ID, name, and city. So the index is, math 1, right click, duplicate, name 2, right click, duplicate, city 3. Because of this, now our update screen, the add screen will be populated by the user selected item, okay? And he can make changes to it and then press the save button, and the save button code will be exactly the same. And in case of cancel button, because remember we had a cancel button on our add screen too. So if the cancel button is clicked, what we're going to do is we're just going to make the main screen visible again and the add screen invisible. Okay, so this is just the code for cancel button. And in our got text event, so here we come again, we had done the add part. So right click, duplicate, and this is the update scenario. So change add to now update. And the most important thing is that now we're not going to be inserting a new row in the sheet data. We just want to update the list view. So how can we do that? By going to lists and get the replace list item block, and the list is the same. So global sheet data, and the index is our selection index, okay? So list view, selection index, and what is the replacement? The replacement is exactly this thing. So I can actually just duplicate it because now this will be containing the updated data. The user has made some changes to name or the city, and now we will be just replacing and updating the data in the sheet data. Okay, and then the rest is exactly the same, that we update the list view elements, make add screen invisible, and make the main screen visible. Okay, so we're done with the update scenario. So let's work on the delete button. So get the delete button, click event, and I would recommend you to bring it closer to save button and update button because we will be reusing some code from there. So in case of delete button, we need to check again if the user selected an item from the list view. So go to control, get the if then block, and then duplicate this check and bring it here. Okay, and we are going to set our global action to, in this case, delete. Okay, make sure the spelling is correct. And then I'm also going to split the row because we need to get the individual items back, more specifically the ID back. So for that, we need to split. So right click, duplicate, plug that in, And then we are also going to set our web1.url because we will be now posting the text. So do that and then call web1.postText, and now the code is pretty similar to what we did for save button. So again, right click, duplicate. This was our save button, click event, and bring it and plug this in, okay? But we don't need all this data, so start removing it after this ID text. And then the ID is a split row, the first item. So select, we can reuse it from there, and then we just close it, okay? We have these extra 4 slots here, so we need to get rid of it. 4, okay? So go back to now your web1.getText event, and let's handle the scenario for delete. So the second last else if is delete. In this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to remove the user's selection index item, that is the user selected item from the sheet data. So from lists, get the remove list item block, sheet data, duplicate, list view selection index, the position in the sheet data, and then update the elements of the list view to this changed sheet data. The last scenario is for the error. And how do we know there's an error? Because my status key will have the value error. See, if I go back to my web app, that's how I coded it, that it will be sending an error, okay? Status, either success or error. So if it's an error, just bring it to the default state of add screen invisible and main screen visible, okay? And if you remember, we did this block, this if block in the last class, in which we handled showing any message, which can be a success message or an error message, to the user using the notifier, okay? This is done. So I hope you liked this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss the great projects that I've planned for you. Thank you for watching. Have a good day and goodbye.